I mean, that's a common thing we tell somebody. They're like, "Oh, I'm not thinking about selling or exiting." I'm like, "You're going to exit it one way or another." What he actually needs, even though he wants to sell, he needs a fractional COO.
Mhm.
So we're going to actually go fill that role for him. We're going to act as the fractional COO. We're going to help clean up his books. We're going to clean up his SOPs. We're going to help him build a sellable asset. I mean, the amount of human bias that could be exploited if you're representing yourself is unreal.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here today to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands like yours with comprehensive, hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Now, today we have a very special guest, really awesome guy, friend of mine, Khaled Azar. He's the founder of Livmo, which is an M&A company. He's an M&A advisor. He's a multi-time venture builder. This is not his first rodeo. And he's going to show us how founders can unlock smart growth, strategic exits, and deal readiness so that they can turn great companies into irresistible acquisitions. Khaled, how you doing?
Good, man. Good. Thank you for having me. I'm always excited to see you.
Yeah. Always nice to see you. Welcome to the podcast. So
Thanks.
for those, M&A is a really big deal. It's a really important thing to think about. If you have a company at some point, whether or not you decide to sell or whether or not you just run it until you die, you're going to have an exit. So it's probably a good idea to consider your exit strategy before those things happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a common thing we tell somebody. They're like, "Oh, I'm not thinking about selling or exiting." I'm like, "You're going to exit it one way or another." I mean, you could possibly be building an institution that's going to last forever, or going to go public. Like you maybe are building Walmart. I can get that.
Yeah.
But most companies don't make that threshold, and it's important for people to understand how to build transferable value, not just something that's wrapped around the owner. So one way or another, you're going to exit for sure.
And I think that you bring up a really big point because I know that you just casually dropped that. But when a company is wrapped around the owner, and I think this is a mistake that most owners make, what does that mean? Let's get into that even more.
Yeah. So, the first thing I think I always like to define is the difference between a business and a startup, right? So a business, and most people can't like technically define it. They go, "Oh, well, it's the age of the company or something like that." And the truth is that a startup is searching for repeatable processes, and a business has found it and is now beyond that and is really building to scale those repeatable processes. So when you're first looking for the repeatable processes, it's fine if it's wrapped around you. You're the owner, you're creative, you're searching for the thing that you are going to be able to do over and over again.
Mhm.
And that way you now have a business that hopefully generates revenue and profit, right? Not just revenue.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people maybe from day one go, "Well, I'm going to build this scalable business from day one." That's a good thought to have. And it's okay in the beginning if it's wrapped around you. I guess like don't start too early thinking that it doesn't need to be wrapped around you. Initially, okay, it's wrapped around you. But once you have that repeatable process, if you can't delegate it to someone else, then I don't know if you really have a business. You might have a product, you might have a service, you might have revenue, you might have profit, but you don't have a business until you are dispensable. You need to make yourself, like I think we talked earlier, it's important to make yourself not important in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you're
Yeah.
saying what you really need to do is figure out how to fire yourself from every position that you're in as often as possible until you are no longer necessary to the business. And then you can, have that nice split. You can compartmentalize and have the you portion of it and the business portion of it so that when it sells, you are no longer the business and the business is no longer you. Yeah.
That's correct. And even as you start to delegate away, there's some just common best practices, right? The first is early on in the business, you're going to have a lot of generalists, so people that know a bunch of different things and they can do those things good enough. And then as you evolve, you're going to have specialists. So I'm going to go from maybe, just again, a generalist who can do a little bit of my marketing, a little bit of my admin work, a little bit of sales. And then as I progress, I'm going to get a VP of sales who just does sales, et cetera. So the first thing is understanding that transition from generalist to specialist. And I think that the other thing that is happening is the way you hire. I've always liked learning this is like you start by offboarding the admin stuff first because that stuff is just tedious and it's easy to delegate away. So like if you're checking your own inbox, that's probably something you can give to a VA pretty quickly. And then the next thing you generally delegate to someone else is client success or customer success. So after you sign someone, the ability to fulfill them should probably be delegated away to somebody else. And you're still doing mostly the sales and marketing. And then the next thing you delegate away is the marketing, right? And so you say, look, the material that's being created to lure in clients and talk to leads, etc., is done by someone else. And then the last thing you delegate away is sales. Like you should be involved in sales till a pretty close to a mature company. And then the last thing you delegate is sales, and that's when you have a full management team. And so now you're the owner, you're the CEO, maybe even the COO, and you have a VP of sales, VP of marketing, VP of client success, and you delegated all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that is a really wonderful, I mean, I almost feel like that should be a mini book, right? That's a little mini pipeline of like what your journey is going to look like, you know? So how did you get into your journey? Where did this come from in your life? And how did you personally get involved in the M&A world?
Yeah. So the M&A world is fairly recent for me, even though I've been doing transactions for my own companies, representing others is fairly recent. I started as a kid in high school, coded my first website, used to pay other kids to write down the spoiler of the wrestling show. So like Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. I'd post that on bulletin forms. That got me millions of hits. And I sold ad space on my .com from those impressions and fell in love with the internet and digital marketing and software because I had coded the website myself at the time using CGI. And I was part of I was 16 and as maybe about 17, I was part of the bubble crash. The company that owed me money actually BK'd in '01. I'm going to sound really, I mean, I sound a little older here, but in 2001, I was like, oh my God, I'm not getting this check that I thought I was getting. But the excitement was so amazing that I just was like, okay, great. And let's just keep doing this. So from there, I just kept building businesses. I'm literally uh, a serial entrepreneur. And then from there, I just dabbled in so many different businesses. I've done a private security company, office furniture company, cold pressed organic juice company, clothing company, 3 software companies. I think a total of about 14 ventures when I counted them. 10 of them didn't make it past a million revenue. 2 of them made it past a million revenue, and 2 of them made it past 10 million in revenue, a yearly revenue. And so the other thing to note is like the hit rate is, I mean, that's the standard sort of percentage of successful businesses, right? I think a lot of people on the internet it's glorifying, oh, you're going to be a unicorn or you got to build this big business, but small businesses, it is really the bloodline. And anyway, through those transactions, I sold some of those companies
Mhm.
and I was actually buying and investing. And just going through all that, I realized, oh, I know how to build a business and I learned how to manage a team, but building a sellable business and understanding how to buy a business was just so foreign to me. And I was like, if I had known this in the beginning, I would have built my business differently. So decided to launch a firm and say, all right, let me help these people build sellable businesses. And that's what I do now.
And I think that's the type of thing you can't learn in a book. You know, having gone through that experience gives you the empathy to interact with founders and say, I have been where you've been. I also didn't know about selling my company. I didn't know how to build towards this thing, you know, and I think that that is a huge connection point that you can have that other M&A companies who view this as like, oh, I'm going to swoop into an already successful company and take a little piece of the pie when we exit. I think that you can offer more comprehensive and holistic support and advice founder to founder than your traditional M&A company.
Yeah, I was just talking to one of my advisors and I said, we are a full stack M&A firm, right? There's like a full stack developer, he does the front of the house, back of the house. There's a full stack marketer who can write the copy all the way to set up the pixel tracking and conversion tracking, right? They're technical and creative. Same thing with our firm, right? I mean, I literally got on a call today where the owner, I reminded him multiple times that we have a 9 a.m. call with the legal team that's helping fixing his accounting. His accounting is, I mean, this guy's making $3 million a year, $1 million in profit, and his accounting is just bad. And so, and he's been kind of not. He's out in the field. It's not a digital. It's part digital, part in the field. And he's not been on calls, and then he's missed a few calls, and then today he was like about a half hour late, and he goes, I'm actually having lunch with or breakfast with my family. And I said, hey, you know what, just stay having breakfast, I got you. And I was like, look, I'll just communicate this stuff over to you at a later time. And so he wants to sell his company. So what he actually needs, even though he wants to sell, he needs a fractional COO.
Mm.
So we're going to actually go fill that role for him. We're going to act as the fractional COO. We're going to help clean up his books. We're going to clean up his SOPs. We're going to help him build a sellable asset, right? So here's this person that knew how to generate revenue, how to generate profit, how to grow a business. But the second someone who's meticulous, like investors or private equity or the people who have a lot of money, are going to look at the business, it's not going to pass the test. They're going to go, there's a lot of issues with this business. So we're brought in when someone's serious about building transferable value, right? Because that's how you turn this $3 million revenue business into a $6 million exit, right? He's getting $1 million a year. Well, I can get you 6 million in the next 6 months, and that's life-changing money.
Yeah, yeah, and people have their niche brilliance, they have their niche genius, right? I mean, you look at Steve Jobs and Apple, and it's like, I have this big idea, and this is how I see the company going. But he didn't necessarily want to do how the company went; he wanted to see where the company went. He was the big picture guy, and so a lot of
Right.
those big picture guys, if you are a big picture guy and you have this great
Yeah.
idea for a company, and you can even run your company well and make a ton of profit, that's fantastic. But there are people who speak a different language and they want to know the metrics, right? And they want to see clean books and they need
Yeah.
that type of support. They need to, they're going like this. They can't mesh. They're not speaking the same language.
Yeah. Yeah. There's I think Ray Dalio in an interview a while ago, he's the guy that runs the Bridgewater, I think, which is a large investment firm. He goes, we keep baseball cards on our team, like people in our company, and we rate their different skill sets, right? So is this person creative? Is this person technical? Is this person empathetic? Are they, so, and he goes, when we go to pick a project, we kind of put the baseball cards down. We say, okay, well, we got a creative person, we got a technical person, et cetera. So that's when you're really big and you're really detailed about it. When you're smaller, you do have to find the person that fits your um counter capabilities. So I'm good at this, you got to be good at that. I mean, it is literally like a marriage. It's like a relationship, right? We need to be able to be honest with each other. We need to be able to do certain things in a similar way, but do certain things differently, because it is another relationship. I mean, as you know, sometimes co-founders are people you spend more time with than your significant other.
Yeah.
And so, and they've done studies on this. I think the most crucial thing in the success of a business is team and timing more than money or idea. And there's a TED talk from the guys from 500 startups, and they go, we looked at it, all things being equal, the team and the timing. So when the market is ready to accept your scale is more important than what the idea is and how much money you have to fund that idea.
That's big. And I'm going to go ahead and put
Yeah.
that link down below for all our viewers and the listeners. Yeah, I mean, absolutely well said. And when you're first starting out is different than when you start scaling with the team and timing. A buddy of mine and I opened a restaurant 20 years ago. And yeah, I mean, for the first couple of months, we had the space and we were just testing. We were in the kitchen. Nobody was there. It was just him and I. We didn't actually want to work at our restaurant, but we did want to come up with systems that worked. And so for us, it was
Yeah.
like, all right, yeah, stuff that we didn't consider is like at the end of the day, it's a big mess. Like, who's going to clean that up? Like, I don't want to do that. But when, as founders for the first couple months, when it was just him and me, before we were even open for business, we were mopping up, and we were doing stuff like that. And you want to get out, you want the team so that you can get out of that position, because it is not a good use of your time to be mopping. It is not,
Yeah, I mean, look, that's why I think owners get high rewards when it does go well, because I've had to shut down companies. Nobody was around me when I was liquidating desks and breaking leases. The staff members went to another company. I let people go. I mean, it sucked for them too, but they went and got another job, right? So I think, and don't get me wrong, I don't, I'm not talking about sort of corporate capitalism and billionaires, but the small business owners are hardworking people, man. I mean, that's why I'm progressive in some sense,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also conservative in some, because I do believe in small business and entrepreneurship and the grind, and those are real things. So yeah, I think in the beginning you have to do things you don't like to do. And I mean, if it was up to me, I would be on fun podcasts with friends all the time, and teach. My lifelong passion is to teach others how to do business. But there are things I have to do all the time. I have that I necessarily don't want to do, and that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it is good to own up to the fact that in any industry, in any profession, there are going to be elements of the job that you love, and there's going to be elements of the job that are a grind, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The thing I want to mention, a couple resources for people watching, is there's a pretty good book called The Six Types of Working Genius. That is a good book about the different types of personalities that work and fit best in a business. I was just kind of looking it up to make sure I got it right. So they have like the wanderer, the inventor, the galvanizing, the enablement. So, and it's kind of shows you how you push ideas through a business. So,
Mhm.
and again, we can include links here. And then the other thing that I think is important for people to understand that I wish I knew early on is how to build a startup. And there's actually a really good free course from Steve Blankman. He's a Stanford professor of entrepreneurship. You can just type in how to build a startup by Steve Blank, and it's for free online. And that those two things alone will help you understand, okay, wow, I have the tools to be able to take my business to the next step. Or if you're starting from day zero, I mean, those are great resources.
Yeah. And I think when you do invest in yourself, when you invest in your time and your expertise in how you run and manage a company and build the right teams, I think that the enjoyment, we talked about the grind, but it's less of a grind when you're not doing grind work. If you can outsource that grind work, fantastic. There's going to be some that you need to do, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, if there's emails that you don't personally need to be responding to and you can have a VA do that, get out of there. Give yourself more free time. Give yourself more time to enjoy the company and then also to think big picture, to be that ideas person so that you can build from there. Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you one of the most fulfilling things in a business is putting the right person in the right seat. When it clicks, when you find the person that fits your company, your culture, your current needs, your current budget. I mean, let's be clear about that too, right? I think because who you need now versus who you can afford now might be completely different. And when it clicks initially, and then you go, great, this is good right now, it's a very good feeling. And then you move on to the next thing. And the truth of it is that it might actually only be a temporary solution, right? And then a year from there, you've outgrown that person and they've even plateaued a little bit on learning and their pay, and you got to move on to someone else. But when it clicks, it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
nice.
So speaking of clicking, let's get more into how you click with companies. You opened up Livmo and you do a
Yeah.
very specific thing. Why don't you walk people through what that specific thing is and who your ideal audience is for Livmo?
Yeah, so I will speak to anybody pretty much, even if they're pre-revenue, right? As for just time and giving them understanding on what to do. We have a very long sales cycle, right? Like when I speak to an owner, sometimes the answer is talk to me in 3 years. So literally in my system, I'm like, all right, I'm going to contact them in 3 years and check on them. In the meantime, I might send them helpful stuff to learn to what to do. So our sales cycle is very long. When we sign a client, and then representing them could take 2 years, right? So they're like, contact me 3 years later. And then 2 years after that, for 2 years, we help them build the business to sell.
Mm-hmm.
The ideal client is someone who has a company that's usually between about 3 to 50 million in revenue. They've been around for at least 5 years and they have a team in place. Usually when they meet that criteria, we can have the most impact, right? We can say, hey, you might have a sellable asset here. Can we look under the hood and tell you how much it's worth?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we can also tell you what things you could do to make it be worth more. We call it a market value assessment. We say, here's what the market's willing to pay. Here's what it believes you will have issues with. And here's how you can get more money out of it if you want to stick around for another couple of years. Some people will say, sell it as is. I don't have the patience. I'm burnt out. Get me whatever you can for it. And say, all right, just to let you know, this is what you should expect.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's incredibly valuable because a lot of founders simply don't know or get misinformation about how much they think that their company is worth. And that can create a real mismatch. If you go to market and you're trying to sell your company, I think a lot of people may be undervaluing themselves, but probably more often they're overvaluing their company because they watched some guru thing and did their own formula and they really don't know what the market is willing to pay.
I would love it if they undervalued their
Yeah.
companies. I would tell you, Jules, if that was the case, I call myself the bubble burster because people come to me and they go, go, "Oh, my friend just got a 14x revenue exit." And I'm like, you're not your friend, you know. You just I don't know how your friend got that. Like I would have to see their entire business, their entire profit and loss statement. I'd have to see who even bought them, because I think what's taught in M&A or in acquisitions is the value of a company is based on the buyer. The buyer goes, "This is how I value the company." It's not what you think it's worth, it's what the buyers think that it's worth. The goal is to find as many buyers as possible and send the price up.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's whatever benefit streams they have in the business that they see, right? So, like, a financial buyer might go, "This is your revenue, this is your profit. I'm not going to make any changes to the company. You make 100K in profit a year. I'll give you 5x that because I think I'll be able to make my money back, 500K to buy the business. Obviously, a smaller business here, and that's great for them. Strategic might say, well, when I buy it, I plan on cutting 2 people from your team, so I actually see that I'll probably make about 220,000 in profit a year. And I can add revenue because we have similar clients. So I actually value it like this. And so now I'll give you, 4x, but 200K of your profit. And they recast or they or forecast the financials, and it's worth something different to
Yeah.
them. So valuation is a range.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, for people who have experience in real estate or housing, I feel like it's a lot like the housing market. Like, what is the house actually worth? Well, there's the actual bones of the house, there's the structure of the house, there's the actual physical thing, but then there's the land that it's on, there's the
Yeah.
location that it's in, there's the comparables when you're looking around at houses nearby. Well, what are they worth? How has growth been over the last 10 to 20 years? So when you're
Yeah.
pricing out a home, it's not just like, oh, well, my friend got 2 million for his home, I want to get 2 million for my home. It sounds stupid when you say it out loud like that, but it's like, okay, well, where is your home?
Yeah.
What, how long has it been around? Is it new
Is it
construction?
is it
Right,
yeah, is there termites? Is there shit? Do you
right.
have a bad, not a great, I mean, in California, you are required to have a real estate license to sell businesses,
Yeah.
actually,
Oh, that's interesting.
for that exact reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're an asset. You have to sell that asset. You have to value that asset for sure.
Which is
Hmm.
particularly interesting because a lot of businesses are fully remote and online at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some laws around not necessarily getting, it's actually a very less regulated industry when it's under 250 million in revenue and under 25 million in profit.
Yeah.
It's not as required as like public shares or things required by the SEC or FINRA and things like that. So private smaller businesses are not regulated by the government on how to sell them. There are individual bodies like the IBBA and a few other institutions, the AM&AA, that kind of handle certifications, but for the most part, it's not as regulated as, let's say, private security or public securities.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so we see that there's some regulations and things like that. But I think beyond that, some founders may look at their company and say, I don't know if I need like an M&A guy or an M&A company to come and help me. I think I could
Mhm.
probably do it myself. And you're probably
Mhm.
going to laugh at that statement, but I suspect that like the majority of the time people just think I could probably do this by myself simply because they don't know what they don't know. So what are some of the few critical things that these people should know about why they shouldn't do it by themselves?
So there's a reason why lawyers, if they get sued, don't represent themselves, right? First of all, the number one thing we say is like, don't represent yourself and don't sell to one buyer. That's the other thing that's just a big no-no. A couple of reasons why. The first thing is you're emotional. It's your business, it's your baby. You're going to become emotional because it is a very emotional process. Buyers are going to try to underbid you. They're going to criticize you consistently because they want to send the value down so they can get a good deal on it. They're going to ask you details or things. It's now you're, instead of running the business and even growing it, you're now spending time on trying to sell it, which could harm the business. And now you're losing leverage because now you're selling an asset that's being neglected. Right. So it's like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen owners go, but I was working with you on it. I'm like, you never take your foot off the gas. That's why I'm here. I'm here to handle all that. Keep doing that. The other thing is, like, let's say you do end up selling your own company,
Mhm.
but there was some negotiation that made it, again, emotional or even negative or adversarial with the buyer. And part of the deal is now you have to work with them for the next year or two to transfer the business. So you just went to battle with someone that you have to now work with for the next 2 years, and you have some animosity on the deal that you got.
Yeah.
And so it just it's very unwise for someone to represent themselves. And I had to learn about the nuances of it all as I was going through my buying and selling of companies. So definitely this is one of those things where you need to hire a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in that sense, you don't ever want to be the bad guy. You want to show up and be the nice person who's constantly got the good smiling face and stuff like that. Whereas you, Khaled, you get to play the professional bad guy in these relationships and you get to go
Hmm.
say, hey, I appreciate your interests.
Hmm.
Here's more realistically, here's some news that I need to deliver to you.
I mean, the amount of human bias that could be exploited if you're representing yourself is unreal. Sunk cost, reciprocation theory, right? They'll concede about something, and you'll think that's okay. Now you'll have to concede on terms. I mean, we're trained on all this. That's not something any person should be doing on their own. Highly against it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you think that you're going to save a few percentage points of your company, right, by doing it yourself, you could be missing out on hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars that you could have gotten with professional help. Yeah.
It's unreal because I mean, the reason I started the firm is when I sold my company, I sold about 40%. So it's called the full consideration, right? Or the total enterprise value, right? That's not the same amount as your cash at closing. The amount of cash you'll get at closing is different than what your total value is. Not only that, your take home cash after taxes and fees is even different than your cash at closing. And so I didn't know all these things, right? In my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to sell the company for seven figures. Well, they offered me about 40% of it in shares. They go, oh, look, we're going to buy it and grow it. Why don't you get some shares? So out of the, the $2 million, we're going to give you 40% in shares. So 800K worth of shares of our company. I'm thinking, great, these guys are going to grow it. And then that 800K is going to become worth 2 to 3 million when they sell it out from under them.
Right.
Come to find out 2 years later, they sold it as an asset sale. So now, well, what's an asset sale? I didn't realize that, but wait, I did as an asset sale. So like I learned with the difference between an asset and share sale or stock sale as I was doing one, as I was buying stocks, and come to find out, okay, what I really got was cash at closing. And now those shares are actually worth nothing because they're an empty shell that company did. So, I mean, I thought, and my broker was a nice guy, but I felt like I should have been educated better about that, and I wasn't. And so I was like any good entrepreneur, I was like, I'm gonna build a firm that is better about educating their clients on all their choices. Because I don't do this just for the money. I do this because it is a very great feeling to see somebody get a wire for 6 million hit their bank account on one day, and they go, I'm pretty much set for life.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
Oh, that's
that's a nice
nice.
feeling.
Yeah. No, and coming from that hard learned lesson, that's deep. That's the type of thing where a lot of times we need our why. We need our here's why I show up to do the stuff that I do. Here's why I love doing this is because I got burned hard and I don't want anybody else to have to repeat that mistake because founders work hard. They've given up a portion of their lives, time with their family, vacation time, nights, weekends, you name it. We founders are hardworking people. And so then
Yeah.
at the end of the race, when you're like, I've been working towards this partly because I love it, but also partly for this reward. And then people are like, oh, here's your reward. Oh, wait, we're going to take 40% of that away from you because you
Mhm,
made one
mhm.
mistake. And I think that's
Yeah.
of the one mistake, there are many one mistakes that you can help prevent.
Tons, man. I mean, we go through this thing like a fine-tooth comb. We go piece by piece. It's a lot of work. I think people, and believe it or not, small businesses are actually more difficult to sell than bigger businesses. As the businesses get bigger, they get a little easier to sell because they're just more established. They have clean. I mean, if you're doing a $50 million in revenue, you got a big staff, and you got a CFO usually, and you have a tax advisor and a lawyer and all these things. And so there's a full M&A team that's going to just get all this stuff done for you. And for you, I mean, at a $50 million revenue company, you're selling for anywhere from 30 to $100 million or more. So for you to give somebody, 3, 4, 5%, you're fine with that because you're about to get a large amount. As they get smaller, I think the founders are so protective of the amount that they want to get that they start justifying why they don't need those costs. And the business is so small and has so many issues. I mean, it's a small business, right? It's a lean team, et cetera, that it actually becomes harder to sell. So now you have to be cheap with the lawyers. So now you might miss things. You're not sure about taxes, and is it big? Is it important enough to have a tax impact on? Should I get a tax person or not?
Hmm.
And so it starts to become this actually more difficult, more tedious thing. So, having a good advisor that is going to also try to save you money. Like I do, if it's a smaller deal, sometimes I'll do them, I'll do them quick. I'll say, look, here's how we're going to do this. I can't represent you legally, but here's a lawyer that's a lot cheaper than most lawyers. I mean, nowadays with some AI, you can have AI review some stuff with you. I mean, look, I'm always looking out like, how can I keep this frugal for my client? But what I don't want to do is 2 years from now have you go, hey, how come you didn't tell me about this? I go, oh, we had this conversation. I gave you the education to understand exactly what was happening. And that's why our slogan is to educate and represent, because if we don't educate them, I don't think they won't learn. And I think it's important to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the type of thing where I think if you don't learn up front, you're going to learn it at the back. If you don't learn this in advance, you're going to have to repeat some of these mistakes that you could have avoided by learning it up front. You're going to learn that hard-earned lesson in the back, and then you're going to go off and be that entrepreneur who's like, I got burned on my thing. And it's like, okay, well, we told you so.
Yeah, and sometimes if they're lucky, they'll get a second transaction in life, right? I mean, I compare this to buying a home or getting married. Like it's not a lot of people don't get to sell a business. So selecting someone who's genuinely cares about your outcome is important. And so when people are like, "Oh, how do I select a broker?" I'm like, did it feel good to talk to them? Like just from a feeling standpoint, right? And not like the excited they told you they're going to get you exactly what you wanted feeling. The were they genuine and actually cared about and told you some honest truths maybe, because that's probably the one you want to go with. But yeah, so
Yeah.
be careful.
So, you talk about having a long pipeline because you actually work with people to help them out long before it goes to sale, long before you're going to make a dollar on the deal. You really help
Yeah.
a lot of people out. And I feel like a lot of founders will probably simply come to an M&A expert. They might come to you when they're ready to sell. But do you feel like they should come to you a little bit sooner? Who should come to you right now?
I mean, again, when they're pre-revenue, we're probably the least helpful, but it's still a little helpful. For example, like if you're building a company from day one, understanding the order of hiring, so we get administrative, client success, then sales, then marketing, then sales, then a management team is good to know in the beginning. Knowing what metrics, let's say you're building a SaaS, okay, I need to track my GRR, my NRR, my CAC, my LTV. I mean, the thing that I love the most is when an owner comes to me and I go, great, what's your cost of clients, like to acquire clients? Oh, we don't pay any money to acquire clients. Everything is word of mouth. Everything is referral. I go, that's so dangerous. Because now if I'm going to buy your company and every client you have is because you knew that client and you're stepping away,
Yeah.
what am I buying? Where's my so I think
Lost the
understanding how to
pipeline, and there's no way to scale that.
yeah, there's no way to scale that. So I think there's these things that it's a double-edged sword. Like, oh, I'm so proud that we just get word of mouth only. I'm like, hey, word of mouth is great, but is it repeatable? Like, do you have someone who's in charge of, again, your marketing, your sales that is going to go with the company for a little bit? So it really is never too soon to speak to us because again, I can give tips because I've done it as well.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit different than other brokers or advisors because I can start early on because I've built from 0 to 1. Again, where we're most impactful is probably like 2 years out. When you're like, hey, I want to sell in 2 years, I'm like, great, let's prep this bad boy.
Mhm.
So again, for example, 2 years out, we might actually want to show more revenue and profit on your taxes because taxes are one way buyers see that you actually are making money. So everybody does this thing where like, oh, check this out. I didn't pay any taxes this year because my tax guy did this and did that. Well, when this big firm wants to say, well, you said you made 1 million on your profit and loss, but your taxes only show 200K.
Yeah.
What happened? Oh, I did this and I did that. And it's messy. And they're like, we actually don't trust that you made that million. And so now now they think it's worth 200K a year in profit.
Right.
So in years in advance, I'm like, hey, you're going to pay some taxes for the next couple of years, but it's going to add, and we can do the math on this. It's going to add this much to your valuation.
Mhm.
And so there are literally formulas that we can say making this change will have this impact on your exit value, right? Hiring a VP of sales, which is 180,000 a year, which is going to hit your profit for 180,000 a year, is going to add a multiple extra on your exit value. That's 400K. That's worth doing. Go ahead and do that. So there's just a lot of math that needs to be done sometimes.
Yeah. So So how do people best get in touch with you when they're ready to do this?
Yeah, livmo.com, livmo.com, Khaled at Livmo, go at livmo.com. Follow me on LinkedIn. I post content daily about things to do to improve the value of your business. Even if you just read my LinkedIn content and our Instagram, you're going to get things that will be tactical. I'm also really big on just like tactics, and I'm happy to always cover the philosophy of it all and the macro, but I think things that they could do right away is what I'm big on. So I have a sellability checklist I send out, a digital company SaaS valuation guide, how to actually understand what your company's worth to different buyers. So any of those resources are available, and just I'm Googleable. So if there's
I love it. Plus, all the viewers, all the listeners for the podcast, those links are going to be right below in the show notes. So obviously you can just, it's one click away, potentially 2 clicks if you need to click show more and then click, you know? Awesome. Khaled, hey, it's been wonderful having you here as a guest. Thank you so much for your insight and expertise. Appreciate it.
yeah, man. Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk, Jules.
Yeah,